And so Abraham probably came with his children from his second family. Our Abraham would have been about 20 years old at that time, and then his other brothers and sisters would have been somewhat younger. And here they lived, and probably Henry was buried here on the farm because...
Had to have been in his 80s. He was probably born about 1665.
Yeah. The church had just started, but he was a Mennonite, and the church was reformed, so he probably didn't go there. And the cemetery, I'm sure, wasn't started within 2 years, so he was probably just buried here on his farm somewhere. And his wife Mary, Margaret, first wife was Mary, was probably buried here too. We don't know really anything about her except she was one of his administrators.
Yeah, she survived it.
Yeah. Well, she probably was younger than he was. So who knows? How would they have come from Philadelphia? On pack mules? Because I'm not sure if this road was extended from the Susquehanna River at that time. It was a little bit later, and they certainly would have come back this road.
It was probably good enough, a fairly good road though, because they went back at least once to sign a deed back in Philadelphia.
Yeah. And of course people were coming from Philadelphia down to here and then go down the Shenandoah Valley to Frederick and on down part of the Great Wagon Road. So,
and York was settled, so I'm sure.
York was settled what year?
I don't know, but it was
not at 1735. I think York was settled afterwards. Littlestown wasn't settled till 1765, and Hanover about what, 1763?
Started about 45.
1745.
Hey.
Go up and get on.
We're on.
Yeah, I want to. Yeah, I'll let everybody take their picture here first.
Well, I.
Ken?
Huh?
Can you give me your camera and I'll take
yeah.
a picture of you guys?
This is an idiot camera. All you need to do is point.
What kind of camera?
Here, I'll hold it for you. Will you pull one around?
Still got a couple up there, maybe we could.
Yeah, we're only about what?
How many more do we
Halfway around.
we got? 3.
His wife Margaret and came to this area from Germantown, Pennsylvania in about 1735, and they bought these 200 acres from John Lemon, who already had a house built here. And here Henry lived until 1749 when he died. And this tree was probably 40, 50, 60 years old when they came. So this is the only thing left of Henry Cell. As you see on the sheet, his son Anthony Cell inherited the place, and then he sold it in 1771. And he moved to western Pennsylvania.
This land is now owned by the Hanover Shoe Farm. And they have had the tree surgeon out here to help preserve this tree.
Creek, it's an old Indian name, and this whole area between Littlestown and Hanover was called Caughnawaga because of this creek. This is actually the Little Caughnawaga. There's a big Caughnawaga, I guess. Son of our Abraham was the one who was postmaster back there, and he had the store for many years. He got $25 a year for being postmaster, and then Abraham lived here in this house. And all of his descendants, Cell descendants, are in Hanover now. So that's how this road got its name, Cell Station, because the train stopped there. It's on your sheet. The train came through here in 1858 and ran for almost 100 years, and it stopped there, and all the tickets had Cell Station on, because that's where people got off between Hanover and Littlestown. Okay, now we'll go. So he, I think, had a tavern here at one time. He was a carpenter, and he got killed on the barn raising about 100 years ago. Miriam Studi, who was my first grade school teacher, grew up here. She was Miriam Sell, and she taught back at Valley Grove up until 1936, I think.
Is this store, was this a continuous operation?
I don't believe, I don't think so. I don't think Miriam's father has a store here. Now we're going down there, that's where Abraham, 100 acres here, and then about the time he got married in 1747, he bought another 100 acres. So he had 200 acres, and he got a deed to that, and this was called Abraham's Plains. So it was south of the highway for the most part, and ran back the road there about a half mile. So he had, and that Cell Station Road was there, and they had another road around the other edge of his property, which is now no longer in existence. But the old maps show that that 200 acres was completely surrounded by a road. Then in the 1760s, by the time he had a number of children, I guess he thought, well, what are they going to do for land? So he got 2 more tracts of land on the other side of the road. So he had well over 450 acres here. So he was one of the big landowners. Those deeds from the pens are still in existence. Anna May Sell Mickley has those. So here is where Abraham raised his 4 children, 2 boys and 2 girls. Adam, who this gentleman is interested in through his wife's side, got the farm from his father, and the other son, Jacob, got the land on the other side of the road. Then Adam passed it down. Adam had a lot of kids, but hardly any of them lived. I think only 5 out of 11 were living when he died. They divided the farm up, and this main section was what, 92 acres? And Adam's son Abraham, 93, okay, got 93 acres, and a daughter got some of the land up there on the highway, and back there where we stopped at the other Abraham, somebody bought that at a public sale. So this 93-acre farm was in the Sell family for 200 years until Anna May Sell Mickley's father sold it in 1946. And if you look on the house, it says Sell number 2. Sell farm number 1, I think, is down on the edge of Hanover, which was Henry Sell's farm. Henry is right beside 2 and 3 of Abraham. That brother got land down there, and the shoe farm bought that. So shoe farms own a lot of Sell property.
Wish it was the other way around. The
Yeah.
Sells owned it.
Now, Abraham built a log house here and a large log barn. And I saw a map that was made in 1820 when Adam died, and it had the location of the buildings, and the houses and buildings seem to be over in here somewhere. Probably not too far on the other side of the fence. That house was probably still standing when Abraham owned it. Adam's son Abraham owned it in the late 1840s because they had a fire, and there was a fire insurance company in Littlestown, and he had insurance on this old log house, and he was the first claimant. I think he had $25 worth of damage in the old log house. This house, as far as I can tell, was built by Abraham's son Peter, number 5 on here. Anna May Sell Mickley has a whole lot of old junk, and I went through that, receipts and things, and he bought a large amount of lumber, lathe, like you would use for plastering a house, in 1863, and it was brought in at the railroad station down here at Sell Station. And I suspect that he built this house and barn in 1863. So that's now 130 years old. So then Adam lived here. Abraham lived here. Adam lived here. Peter lived here. William lived here, and then it went to Clayton and Harry Sell, who kept it up until 1946. I think they got what was it, around 20,000 for this 96 acre, 90 some acres.
I'll take it.
Yeah. This is really the center of Selldom, as we call our kingdom here in the Conewago Valley. This is the tour of Selldom. Any questions? And back to here was owned by Abraham Sell too. This was part of his second and third tract. And this land went to his son Jacob Sr. Adam got the home place, and Jacob Sr. got this over 200 acres. I've never tried to find out where the buildings were. I don't know if it could be found out. But Jacob lived here just during his lifetime, and when he died in 1825, the property was sold because he had a lot of children, and I guess he didn't want to show favoritism, so they divided up the money and gave it to the children. So old Abraham got quite a good tract of land. I think the land is pretty good farmland. Now, you probably want to spend some more time at cemetery, so we can see number 7 from the cemetery where Jacob Jr. lived. Jr. lived right back behind the cemetery. The buildings there are not original, and Jr. had 2 farms. He had one out this way that was sold to Gobrecht's great-great-grandfather, and he got that farm because his wife was a Sell. And then he had the other farm over here that had a sawmill on it and had about 200 acres. And that was in the Sell family for quite a while. When we get up to the cemetery, I have a little handout where you can find your relatives on the cemetery. I made it where because we have 7 direct generations of Sells buried there. My dad and Anna May's dad is buried there. They're the 7th generation. All have tombstones standing. That's really something, isn't it? So I tell Herbie he has to be buried there, and I have to be buried there.
Wait till he dies, though.
Huh?
So let's wait till he dies.
Oh, well, yeah.
Yes.
This is Peter Little's tomb, founder of Littlestown.
Okay, let's... Which word? That's probably body or bones. Sometimes they say bones, you know. Ending.
He was born
Born.
the 27th of August, 1724.
In Konken, Germany, and they were
That's not
reformed.
on the
No, but his name was in the baptismal records over there, and they were reformed over there too. Now this is where they was formed in 1747, and they had a little log house, a little log meeting place, and might have even doubled as a school. And then in 1798 they built a much bigger church that was torn down when the new church was built. Yeah. I was baptized and confirmed there.
I had the balcony in it.
86. This tombstone is now 207 years old. Yeah, get a picture of it because who knows when the lawnmower will hit it.
Who is buried there again?
Abraham Sell,
Okay.
1715, 1786. He was in both the French and Indian War and in the Revolutionary War. He was a wagoner when Braddock made his trip out to Pittsburgh. He had 2 teams of horses and 2 wagons that he got reimbursed for because they lost them all when the British were defeated. Why, they cut the traces and burned the wagons and hightailed it back to the east. And then he was in the militia. I doubt if he saw any fighting. They might have guarded troops, British captured soldiers down at York or something like that, but I doubt if they did any actual fighting. But being in the militia still qualified him to be qualifies everybody to be a member of the DAR. And as I say, we don't know where his wives are buried. After his first wife, Louisa, died. Then he married a woman by the name of Hannah, probably Zimmerman.
Ken,
Yeah.
who's Abraham Seller?
Where did Dick get to?
He never came in. He went on
Oh,
past. Oh, there
yeah,
he comes
he's
back.
been here. I bet he went to get his camera. Okay, this is the tombstone of Jacob Sell Sr. back there at the community building where we turned around. 1742 to 1825, and his wife Christiana Hessen, and I visited the town where she came from in Germany, and the pictures back there will show where her father came from, Balser Hessen, in Limbach, Germany. And so they had, I think, 9 kids, and some of them stayed around here. Quite a few of them went to Ohio. 4 of them went to Ohio, and 1 went to Western Pennsylvania. And one of them was your ancestor, Gobrecht, married a Gobrecht, one of his daughters. Was it senior or junior daughter? And then Jacob Jr. Yeah, well, I'll tell you about Jacob Jr. when I get off this tombstone. Notice this is still in German in 1825. They used German here till late into the 1800s when they began using some English.
Again.
Okay, this is where Jacob Jr. and his wife, Catherine Leister, are buried. Notice the tombstone's now in English in 1855. I was also where Catherine Leister's grandfather came from in Winterberg, Germany. So I have pictures of all 3 Sell wives. Jacob had a large family. I had an idea to stop over at Jacob Jr.'s place, but our time's getting short, and you can just see it over there. The gray barn, he had about 200 acres over there. The gray barn was one part of the farm, and then behind the tree is another white set of buildings. That's where Jacob Jr., and that's where your ancestor and your ancestor David Sell grew up, on that farm over there. Had a mill back to Bullinger Road, and he died rather young. He was only 50. In fact, a lot of people in that line didn't live very long. He made it much longer than usual. His wife is buried down there by the tree. I don't have her on here. His wife remarried a Reeser after David died. Old Mrs. Sell had, I think, 12 children, and she outlived them all but one. She saw all her kids die. Edmund was killed in the Civil War. I suspect he was either drafted or took $500 to take somebody's place. He was a cavalryman, and he was killed within about 2 months after he enlisted in the service. I looked at his pension records. Yeah, that's Edmund. I looked at his pension records, and it said in there that his mother went down about a month after he died, and they had him dug up and brought up and had a service here at Christ Church for Edmund.
Okay. He's been moved in.
Yeah, he was buried down there. He was killed by Mosby's guerrillas. In fact, I think it even says, yeah, Mosby's guerrillas. Mosby was a big guerrilla fighter in the valley, and they didn't want people to forget that Mosby killed her son. I can show you where, I think I can remember where David's wife is buried, and I don't know where her second husband is buried. Died before she did, and her son that outlived her only lived about a month after she died. So she had really a tough life. Lost 2 husbands, son in the Civil War, all her other kids.
How many greats for a grandmother would that be for me?
Well, let's see. John Sell is your father. Emery was your grandfather. Noah was your great-grandfather. This would be your great-great-grandmother.
Grandmother. Okay, that's what I had thought it was, but I just wanted to be sure. Didn't have my paper.
Her name is Rice.
Yeah, she married a Ricer the second time. I thought it was research.
And this is the tree where Larry Unger and I sometimes would have our Sunday school lesson taught under.
Yeah, Jacob the drunk. This was David's brother. This was Jacob Jr.'s son.
What was Lydia's maiden name?
Yes, it looks like
I have
she
it in the
erased
book. I
it.
can't remember.
Oh, you
right
have it in the
offhand.
book?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Because
I think Dick erased his name there because you can hardly see it. It was clear last year.
Maybe the rains did it too.
Oh, there he is. Well, his son, who went out to Indiana, Isaac, always voted the prohibition ticket and never touched a drop because his dad was an alcoholic.
Yeah.
You had some legal documents or something saying he wasn't financially competent to handle his financial
Well, his
affairs.
father, Jacob Jr., didn't trust him, and so he had his inheritance under a guardian all his life. Now, Jacob apparently was an alcoholic, and he used to walk into Littlestown and have a few, and then he'd walk, and then he'd stagger home, which was about 2 miles from here. It was about 4 miles from Littlestown. The family was always worried about him and something would happen to him. Well, sure enough, on the night of December 7th, 1882, and we're grateful to Wendy for finding this in the newspaper, he was almost home, and it was a cold winter night, and he fell over in a ditch within the sight of his house and froze to death. They found him the next morning. And 2 or 3 years ago, we went out to that site, and Dick laid in the ditch, and I have a picture of him.
Oh, no! And next year, I'm going to get it on video.
I don't know what sort of characters are living. The house is still standing, and they were ready to shoot us. And so we haven't visited that place much on the tour.
We weren't sure what they were growing in there, and if
Yeah.
I said it
Since
now.
Dick has tours and visited all the holy sites, I would now like to present him this certificate to be a certified accredited tour guide of Selldom. Wendy, come up here. Well, we'll give you one for posterity, and she has done the same thing, and she is now an accredited tour guide of Selldom.
Oh, very good.
Yeah. After all the nasty things you said already, you said enough.
And here's the very famous cell, the most important cell in Christchurch Cemetery, Mr. John N. Sell, interior decorator. And this is the burial site of your great-grandfather and great-grandmother Sell. My father's parents, John N. Sell's parents, Emery and Bertie Sell.
They don't have a lot of time around for people that they don't like, but it is a public record. They do have to give it to you. That clerk might not have to. If you go to his wallet, register will, and they go, he'll come around and get it.
Down there.
Okay, now Today is Sunday, August 15th, 1993, and this has been the Cell Family Band performing at the Christ Church Picnic Grove for the 48th Annual Cell Reunion. This is our warm-up section.
Zoom up there on the top.
Okay.
Zoom in and out. And messing.
All right.
Get up there and
Believe it or not, they say they really did rehearse for this. They've had 6 rehearsals.
Ted Dix is supposed to be coming up here. He's coming to see you play trombone. You better get up here.
Are going to sing, and Natalie too. This is going to be a treat. They're going to sing the Billboard song, which is from many years ago. It goes back to the 60s, so they're going to sing it first, then they're going to try maybe to get you to sing it second time. Go, girls.
Your baby to the Hershey's candy bar, and Texas of you dream that's used by all the stars. Take your next vacation in a brand new Frigidaire. Learn to play the piano in your grandma's underwear. Doctors say that babies should sleep till they are 3, and below or 6 guys should bathe in Lipton tea. One fruity bag.
Oh, that's good.
Growing, you're still growing, you're still going strong. You make the room. One of those old favorite songs from way back when. Take her out, fella, give her an empty lap, fella, Dolly, you'll never go away again. Hello, Dolly, well, hello, Dolly, it's so nice to have you back where you belong, oh yeah. You're looking swell, Dolly, I can tell. Dolly, you're still growing, you're still growing, you're still going strong. You make the room so for the band playing. One of those old favorite songs from way back when. So take her out, fella, give her an empty lap, fella, Dolly, you'll never go away. Dolly, you'll never go away. Dolly, you'll never go away again. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I should have put these.
Kawasaki.
This is when you're hung over.
You are related to all of the Studies, a great many Bechtels and Kuntzes and Gobrechts and Mosses and many, many others. People that you've known, the Ungers, people that you've known for many years that you'll find that you are related to. So it's going to be a well-documented book, and all the stuff that we talked about on the tour this morning will be in there. And I was appointed to this job in 1956, I think, and so maybe by 96 I'll get the job done and go to work on something else.
He's going to have a 2-volume book. The first volume will deal with all the male line, and the second volume will deal with the female
Mervyn Maris,
line
maybe you have a
of the
report
cells.
on the scholarship.
Purnell Hilker is treasurer. He told me the Cell Scholarship activity had shown that they paid $100 to James Hilker on the 12th of September as a student minister from the fund. They received from Richard Cell $50, and the interest to date brings the total balance as of 8/14/93 in the Cell Scholarship to $833.03.
This scholarship is given in my father's name, Johnson,
And Anna May, I want to donate another $50 to the
Cell, who
Cell
founded the
Fund.
reunion.
In memory
He didn't divorce the first wife, but they split shortly after they were married because she had a child and she was already pregnant. She didn't tell him it wasn't his child. So he married somebody else, and then when he was about 60 years old, he thought, gee, she could inherit a lot of my property. So he had to go to the state legislature and get a special act of divorce to get rid of that first gal. So he was the only bigamist in the family.
Which one was this, Ken?
Huh?
Which one was it?
That was Jacob Cell, the merchant. He's not as closely related to us as the other Jacob Cells, fortunately.
Laverne Louis said, why don't you go up and try out for Killer's Angel? Oh, I said I couldn't get in that thing. Well, I found out how easy it was to
My
get in. They
battery's
hired me right
almost
away. And so I was up there about took about 2 months to film it, and 3, and I was there about 10 days. So I'm going to put over here on the table, this is Martin Sheen, and some days I was very fortunate because about 30, 40 a day from around this area, from Baltimore or any place, Harrisburg, we would come and then we'd be like a recruiting deal, and we'd go get our uniforms, get our shoes, then we'd go for the muskets, then they'd train us how to use them. And the next day, if new recruits came in, they'd have to teach them all again how to use the muskets. So after about 5 days, I felt like I was a real veteran. And then the time I was up, I got up for Pickett's Charge, and I was fortunate to get right on the field, where actually Pickett's Charge was. That's where they filmed it, just the first day. They were only allowed to be on there one day. So I had quite an experience. And so Martin Sheen, he was Lee, and Tom Barringer was Longstreet. And here I'm with Confederate artillery. And here I'm dead on Little Round Top. And this is General Pickett. I forgot his professional name. And my brother-in-law took a picture when we were in the Union one morning. And he just stepped out and took his picture, and everybody likes it. And he gave me a picture this big, so now I have one over the mantel like that. My wife gave it to me for my birthday present. And he has one too. So you can look at those. It's the only time I'm sure I will be in the movie, but I don't even think you'll see me. But if you do.
And this, here are two of my favorite cousins, Glenn and Snook Unger, who are in charge of the ice cream for this wonderful Cell reunion. Yes, they're handling it, makes it the best ice cream around.
It's not helping me out.
Well, I thought Ken was.
Wave hi, Herbie. I see you, Herbie.
Where'd you get that thing?
Say hi.
Where'd you get that?
We got it at Silo in York.
Can I have everybody's attention, please? I'd like to start the auction. Could I have a bid of 50 cents on that? Anybody give me 50 cents? 50 cents. Could I have 75? 75? Could I have 75? 75? I have 75. Could I have $1, please? I have $1. Could I have $1.25? I have 50. Sold. Oh, you want to go 75? Okay. Would you give me $1? Okay. Would you give me $1.25?
Say hi there.
Cleanly wrapped package. Could I have 50 cents?
Can you say
please?
hi?
75.
You're getting scared, huh? Say hi to her.
Hi, sweetheart.
Okay.
Little Kelsey. Would you like to say something into the camera?
Is this ever good?
Just how good?
It's so good that this is my second one. And I think I'm going to eat the third. And if more people would come to this reunion, I wouldn't have to eat so much ice cream. Signing off.
Very good, Herb. This is Mabel Sell, Stanley Sell's wife. He and my dad, her husband, and my dad founded the Cell reunion.
Okay, if you want to play bingo, you listen to me. We got 23 prizes up there. Corners.
I think that's it.